Welcome to No Excuses. Today is a book review day and I love my reading. If you're new here, you're going to find out that reading is one of my passions. And I've been sharing what I read every week. It is to help you find books that you might like and to open up your eyes and, well, just because it gives me a remembrance of what I read. So there we go. This last week, the first week of 2025, I actually read a fair amount. Now, I know you're thinking, well, of course she read a fair amount because she's unemployed. But that's not true because ironically enough, I've read very, very little during that time that I normally would have been working because I've been keeping myself on a schedule. I have been working on my scanning project. I've been looking for jobs, been editing videos, cleaning the house, doing all kinds of stuff. But I was off on New Year's Day and we just kind of relaxed at home and I read. The weekend, we took a very relaxing weekend and I read. And then on Monday of this week, Jason was home with a snow day. And, while we did go outside and while we did, shovel and play outside with the dog, I did read a lot. So I read 4 books. And I am so happy to say that I have 4 winners. Lately, it's been like oh my word, this book just went on forever. And, was not the case this week. Yes. So without further ado, let me share my books. The first book I read was The House of Eve. Now this book is one of those ones where you have 2 parallel stories. They're going here, you're going there. You know that eventually they're going to intermesh, but you just don't know when. And at the beginning, this one was a little bit hard. I was like, okay, which one am I talking to? And it's there. But in the story, you're reading about 2 young Black women in like the 1950s, 60s, I can't remember the actual time frame, but it was in that era. And they are both experiencing different things that happen. One is experiencing the whole racial thing. She falls in love with a Jewish boy. The other one is experiencing more of a social issue because she was from a lower socioeconomic background and she fell in love with somebody that was from the wealthy elite. And the book actually highlights both of those principles and both of those ideas. And they both are falling in love. And the things that you would expect happens. And they get pregnant, both of them. And you go through the experiences because, here's one that's excited about it. Here's one that's not. Here's one that's trying to find a way to get rid of the problem, but she doesn't want to, but she's trying to find a way because, she has a whole life ahead of her. She has dreams, she has plans. She's really working to try to get out of that level where she's at. It's just a really good book. I liked it. It's not something I would normally read, but it took me into an era that I'm not familiar with. It took me into a race that I'm not familiar with. And it took me into situations that I'm not overly familiar with. Or maybe I shouldn't say familiar with, but very well versed. So I thought the book was really good. It's a good read. It's gonna, your emotions are tied up into it. So it's a good one. Highly recommend. High 3, maybe even a 4. The next book was The Lost Orphan. This book was set 1800s and it starts with a young gal who is very, very young. And she is working at the boat docks and she is selling shrimp, like out of a hat. Weird, I don't know. Don't ask me what they did on the boat docks. But she's like very, very poor, very, very low socioeconomic. And she meets a man, gets pregnant, and has to give the baby to an orphanage. And when she gave this newborn, she actually said, can I come back and get this? I'm like, yeah, if you pay for the baby's care, you can come back anytime. And they gave her, a number and they had identifying things that only she was supposed to know so that she could reclaim her child when she could. And that was her goal. She wanted to reclaim her child. So she worked so hard. And when she went back for the baby was gone. The baby had already been picked up by the mother. And thus, this lady works to get back her child. She works to figure out where her child is. She works to insinuate herself into the child's life and does what any mother would probably want to do. It was a good book. I thought the ending was a little rushed. It came together and it just went really fast. And I'm not really happy with the ending. It's still a good book. It was a 3, low 3 maybe, but it was a 3. It was still a really good, solid book. I would recommend it. And by the way, all of the books ever that I do, links are in the description below, so you can find them on Amazon. They're there. Next up, we have the book, All That We Have Lost. And this book was interesting. When I was actually putting it into Goodreads, I actually figured out that it was the same author of a book that I reviewed back in December called The Dance Teacher of Paris, I think it was. The Dance Teacher of Paris. And I was like, well, no wonder I like this book because I liked that one. So I obviously like her writing style. So, so this is a double whammy because I really do like this and I really liked that one too. And I'll give you a heads up that this one is a 4. So the book starts and you are in present day and a gal is suffering from life. She's been dealing with depression over certain things and she's just not happy with her life. So she decides to follow her dreams and she ends up going to France and she buys a falling down, half burned out chateau in a small little village. And that story goes out through the whole thing of her working to remodel it. And as she's doing it, she's finding out that people in the village don't want to talk to her. There's just this, she starts talking about the chateau and there's a brick wall. People don't want to talk. People don't want to go into it. And she doesn't know what's happening. And she wants to know. She keeps asking, but nobody is saying it. So that story is like interweaved through the whole thing. But in the midst of the story, you actually go back to World War II in that same village. And there is a young gal who was living with her mother. Her younger brother was very, very ill and just living under occupied Germany. And it wasn't pretty. And this girl ended up falling in love with somebody that she should not have fallen in love with. And in the meantime, there was a German soldier that actually had his eye on her and was trying to force her into do stuff, the naughty stuff. And, well, things happen. And it all does weave together very, very nicely. It is a well put together book. It's a 4. I would highly recommend this one, just like I would highly recommend The Dance Teacher, because, that was a good one also. The last book I read was called The Paris Gown. And this is a story of friendship. This is a story of 3 gals who had met when they were in schooling. One was from France, one was from America, and one was from Australia. They were best of friends. Life was good. And they vowed to be friends forever. And they went their own ways when schooling was over. And inevitably, one of the girls they kind of lost touch with. The other one was sporadic. And they end up coming back to France and meeting back together, and the bonds of friendship are just as strong. And those bonds of friendship get them through heartache, through struggles, through you name it, they get it through it. And interwoven through the story, there is a Christian Dior ball gown that plays an instrumental part in all of their stories. It's a good book. It's a good book. Solid 3. Way solid 3. So that is it. I already have a book that's almost done, but it's time to film this. So I'm going to stop with 4 today. And like I said, highly recommend all of them. The Lost Orphan was a little bit lower just because of the ending was just a little rushed, but it was still a solid book. I would still highly recommend it. I would recommend all of these books. Top-notch reading, all of them. Yes, yes, yes. So that is my reading for the week. I have already started reading for next week. I am like this close to finishing up a book, but I wanted to get this filmed, so that'll go on next week. Can't think of anything else I need to say, so no excuses.